So I was very excited to make today's video because if you've been listening to me lately, I am in love with these ELO sketchbooks and I just got a brand new one. ELO actually reached out to me and wanted to thank me for loving their product, I don't know. So they sent me a free one and a free one to share with you guys. So check the link in the description if you'd like to enter that giveaway. But yeah, let's get started with the video. Something I wish someone had told me when I was younger, and what I'd like to tell anyone who's like a new artist, is that one bad art piece doesn't make you a bad artist and mean you should quit. No. And today I want to really instill that message. And I'm going to do that by showing you two separate speed paints today. The first one, I am going to be drawing on the cover of the sketchbook and using this acrylic gouache because gouache is opaque and I thought it would look really cool. And in my head, I had this really great idea. So that's what I'll be showing you first. And then next up, I'll be showing you something I'm a little bit more happy with. My original idea was all inspired by the cover of the sketchbook, and the cover of the sketchbook is sort of this like off black color, and it reminded me of space. I thought, oh, I want to draw a space girl, and then I can add all these like white dots all over the place for stars, and it'll be so cool. And I'm gonna use this acrylic gouache, and it'll be opaque, and like all the colors will be nice and vibrant and flat, and it's gonna be gorgeous. And I had these big expectations in my head. But moving in, I realized, wait a minute, I'm not entirely sure how to sketch on the cover of this book. I tried a pencil, it didn't work. Then I moved on to this white charcoal pencil, which did work, but I couldn't really see it as well as it's showing up on camera. Like, that looks pretty there. Like, look at that. Wow. I wish it had been like that when I was drawing. Anyway, so I was a little nervous going in, but I thought, you know what? I've used gouache once or twice before. I think I can make this work. So with that, I had a pretty decently well laid out sketch, and I had all of the elements I needed on the cover sketched out and ready to be colored in. And I was pretty happy with this. I think I had basically everything I needed to go forward, so I felt pretty confident and I moved into the gouache. And as soon as I started putting down some paint, I was like, this is a mistake. Everything felt wrong from the beginning, and the brush was too soft. I was having a hard time getting like the lines I wanted, and the color really wasn't right. As you see, I only have those 5 colors of gouache, and so I have to mix it to get any of the colors I want. And I pictured this being like blue and purple, so I had to mix a few colors, and I just really wasn't happy with any of them. And then when it came to this her skin tone, I was like, oh, I think it would be really cool if she had like a really warm skin tone to go with all these cool colors. But I really wasn't able to mix the color that I saw in my head. And when it comes to artists not liking their own work, I don't think it necessarily means that the art is turning out bad, or that like the drawing is worthless, or that it's like has no value. When an artist sees their own work and they're not happy with it, it's usually because it either didn't live up to the expectations that they had in their head or the way they visualized it before they started creating it, or it's because they feel like they could have done better. And today, I think I fell under both of those categories. I've used the other couple times that I've used gouache, I feel like it just turned out better. It just doesn't look any way it does in my head. That wasn't a sentence. It doesn't look anything like it does in my head. So I spent a couple hours on this, and I kept tweaking it, hoping eventually it would turn around and start looking the way it did in my head, but I just really wasn't able to capture that idea that I had in my head. So after butchering the cover, I decided, let's go in with my current favorite medium, Copic markers, and redraw the cover, but as the first opening page in the sketchbook. So redraw it, but try and do it the way I see it in my head. So that is when we move on to part 2 of the video. I think that that concept of taking what's in your head and transferring it to paper can be very tricky, so I think what's important is to really find that process that works for you. And what I've been doing lately with my Copic markers is drawing with a pink Colorase pencil, and then applying the marker on top of that, and then adding the ink on top of that. Or sometimes I'll put the pencil, then the ink, then the marker. But I don't erase my sketch. Usually if I use like a mechanical pencil, I have to erase it because mechanical pencil and Copic markers do not get along. They just keep them far away from each other. So I've been using this Cool Erase pencil because it interacts with the Copic marker a lot gentler. Like it barely smudges the pencil at all, if like it really doesn't, I don't think. And it actually looks kind of cool under some of the pastel colors, especially if you use pink and use a light skin tone. Then the pink like almost acts as like, you know, blood vessels and veins, and it adds just an extra bit of liveliness to the skin. And I've actually done this with darker skin tones too, and while it's not as obvious, I still think it makes a significant difference that really helps bring those characters to life and not look too dead, if that makes sense. I think it's just that little extra pop of pink just helps. And since I'm not erasing, it's very important that this sketch really captures everything that I want it to before I start adding color. And here I am adding in the hair color. I'm sticking with that pastel purple from the cover. And you'll see I'll change up a few things that I didn't like that I made in the cover. Like I changed her outfit a little bit. I actually made her face a little too big this time, but that's all right, I'll take it. I also changed her hair and made it pigtails, and I think I changed the leggings or something. I don't know. It's supposed to be a spacesuit, but I mean, it's obviously not safe. I took some creative liberties. Now, my whole reason for drawing a girl in space was because the front cover was a black sketchbook, and obviously the paper on the inside is white, so I needed to go in and color in the entire background with marker. So first I used a bit of a lighter gray, I think it was like N6, and I colored the inside of her helmet, because obviously there'd be a little bit of reflection and light, and might alter the colors that you're seeing through it. So I used a bit of a lighter color with that. But before coloring in the background solid black, which I kind of expected to be a bit of a daunting task, I decided to add facial features to her face so I don't have to stare at this pupilless demon for that entire time. For the eyebrows and the lips, anything that I colored in purple, I used the Ohuhu dual tip markers, just the fine liner side, and added in those details. And then for anywhere that ended up being black, I used a Pentalic fine liner for that. And I tried something a little different with the eyes this time around. Usually I'll just color in the entire pupil area with like a solid color that I use as the line art, just because I like big alien eyeballs. But this time I decided to just do a little different, and I don't love it, but I like that I changed it up a little bit, and I'm probably gonna go back to what I usually do. Trying to bring a little bit more life to the face, I grabbed a bit of a blush color and added those tints to her nose and her cheeks and blended those out so that it was a bit smoother. And this really helps bring more color into an illustration if you're drawing very pale skin, and I have very pale skin, so I tend to draw that a lot. So I like to add a little pop of pink, or like this is more like a maroon color. I feel like it really blends in with the color scheme a lot better than like a bright pink, so I'm really happy with that. And it's almost purpley, and I don't know, it's just really, I think it works really well, and I like it. I like the tones that it gave, especially mixed with whatever color I used for the skin. I don't really know. If I had to pick like a favorite part of drawing with Copics, it's probably adding blush. I need to practice it more with darker skin tones. I got it really good a couple days ago, and I want to keep trying and see. I have to realize what I did that made it turn out right, because sometimes you just get lucky and then you're like, wait, well, I don't even know what I did. So once I figured that out, I'll let you guys know. And I switched over to a slightly darker color, still not like a straight black, and started coloring in the background. I also mixed in some of my cool gray Ohuhu markers to try and save some of my Copic ink while I was filling in the background. And it's very difficult not to get splotchy when you're coloring this large of an area. But I did my best, and especially switching out with the Copic and the Ohuhu, I feel like that actually helped minimize the smudging. But there'll always be strokes. They're markers, they're not paint, so it's kind of just something I have to accept. But I really like the way this paper actually holds markers. It bleeds to the other side of the page, but it doesn't usually bleed to the page behind that. And that's really nice in a sketchbook, so I don't really have to worry about like sticking in papers between the pages, and I can just go in and color when I feel like it, and you know, lots of freedom. And sometimes I added in the stars before I was done, because I just wanted to see what it would look like with the stars. But once I was done coloring in the entire black background for the night sky space thing. I added in a bunch of stars using the Sakura Decores pen. I have a bunch of these white pens from my white pen review, and I've kind of been trying to circle through them so that I don't have to buy more of the good ones. I'm like, I could just make it work with some of these other ones, so that's what I've been using. It doesn't help that each of like the white pens works better on like a different medium. So like this Decores works really well on Copics. Like some of them work good on watercolor and others work terrible on Copic, so it's like really gotta switch them out, which is kind of annoying. Anyway, and then I had this pretty cool night sky, and I actually like the way it looks with the solid white and the pink sketch of the character standing out from the background. Like, I don't know, I like the way that pops. For the word sketchbook and then the number, I used a Posca pen. First I used an extra fine one, but it was a little too sketchy and thin, and although I really like that texture, it really wasn't what I was going for. So then I moved on to the next size up, which I think is just called fine or regular. And I just went over that font, well, the words again, to make it a little thicker and fuller. And then I was pretty much done with the background, and it was time to start coloring in the body and hopefully use a color scheme that fits the one that I had in my head. So let's move on to that. In the drawing I did on the cover, I used this like really bright blue, and in my head I pictured it being a lot less saturated and almost a gray tone. So I'm using a cool gray to color in those areas on this drawing and keeping it very like it's almost blue, but it's kind of blue. I don't know. It's just, it feels more space suity to me, and it much better represents the idea that I had in my head. This is also where you'll notice I kind of changed up the design of the outfit from the original sketch because I can do a lot more details with these markers than I could with the gouache, so I'm trying to take advantage of that by doing like quick little strokes and other little elements of it. And on the other one I added like extra like weird arm holes to her shirt just because I felt like it needed something and I didn't like the way it was looking, but I left those out for this one because I was able to kind of more capture that idea that I had. And I also changed her shirt and gave it a star instead of that weird exclamation point. And I like this one a lot better. I feel like it's kind of cool. I don't know. One of the advantages Copic markers has over the gouache that I used earlier was that it's kind of translucent, so I'm able to add shading to these really sort of detailed leggings, and it gives that rounded look and makes everything look more three-dimensional, and I can do that to the skirt and the shirt, and then of course like I gave her those gray gauntlets, and I'm really happy with this color scheme because it's a little bit more contrasty, if that makes sense. So the blue is very dark and saturated, and then the gray is very light, and the white sections are very light, and it gives contrast between the blue and the white, and I think it just looks overall more appealing to me, at least. I think the only problem I really had with this drawing was the head's a little too big, but I'm gonna chop that up to being the fact that she's wearing a helmet and it's glass, and maybe it's a bit of a magnifying glass and it makes her head look bigger. There we go, see, I can make it work. So yeah, and then all I had to do is add line art to everything. I also added highlights to the helmet to make it look more like glass. So I added this like circular reflection and other reflections. And I also used the Posca pen and went around the whole outside of the character to make it pop from the background. I like to do this. It's very cartoony and not very realistic, but I just enjoy it and I like the way it looks, so I tend to do it a lot. So it's just a little quirk that I can't seem to shake. And yeah, after that, I think I was just about done. I just added a bunch of details, and I'm just checking to make sure I didn't forget anything I wanted to talk about. Oh, one thing is, I realized after drawing this, I was like, I had this idea that the girl would have long hair and then it's like building up in her spacesuit, and I thought, oh, this is such a good idea. And then I went on Instagram, like literally 2 minutes after this, and I noticed that Loish had a picture that was basically like this, and I'm like, gah. But if I'm gonna emulate someone, it might as well be Loish, so I'm not gonna complain. I just thought I was being original, and I know I've seen that picture, but I wasn't thinking about it, so yeah, just thought I'd mention that. Anyway, I want to thank you guys for watching. I hope maybe this gave you some insight into the fact that, you know, not everything's gonna turn out 100%, but it's never a good idea to give up. So I'm really glad that I gave it another shot and kind of redeemed myself in a way and created art that I was more comfortable with and actually enjoyed a lot more, because when I'm struggling with something, it's not as enjoyable of an experience. So I'm glad that I took the time and redid it and really enjoyed myself. So I'm very happy with this, and I'm glad I could share the process with you of not only making mistakes, but also kind of trying to recapture my love for art. So yeah, and don't forget, I have the giveaway in the description where you can get your own ELO sketchbook, and don't worry, it won't have anything vandalized on the front of it. It'll be brand new and in its wrapper like this. But yeah, and I'll maybe throw in a little doodle on a separate piece of paper or something. Who knows? Ooh. Anyway, if you want to enter that, it'll be a link in the description. And thank you, ELO, for sending me this sketchbook and one to share with all of my peeps. I really, really love your sketchbooks, so thank you. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys all next week, and I hope you all have a delicious evening full of waffles. Bye!